Good day, everyone. Wormy behind the camera again. I I hope the season isn't getting anyone down. Here in Southern California, I had a very balmy Imbolc. This weekend we had a storm, but it's sunny again, and I still managed to catch a cold. Uh, for others in gloomier areas of the country, I hope you really had the opportunity to embrace the festival lights, especially if you suffer from seasonal depression. I want to talk about our altars and accessories. What you see in front of you is not my altar, but a more formal table setting. Here you have your wine and water glasses, several forks, a number of spoons, a stack of plates. Some of you may immediately recognize the function of all of these elements. Some of you may be familiar with them in a slightly different arrangement. Some of you, not me, may be sitting down to a spread like this for Valentine's. But I would say all of us would probably recognize a table setting like this as one usually reserved for special occasions. But why do we go through the effort of collecting each stemware and utensil? Sorry about that. Why polish the silver and place the plates just so? Why pull out the nicest linen just to have people wipe their mouths on them? Why do we waste the resources procuring these items and waste space storing them and waste the time to set the table if all we're going to do is sit and eat and then leave the table? Why do we go through the motions of dressing up a table for a special occasion for something as mundane as consuming calories? People started getting fancy with their dinnerware because it felt special to do so. People have always been inclined to dress up the drab and make festive the mundane and deck the hall, so to speak. When people pull out the good china and serve a meal that took 6 hours to prepare, complete with completely unnecessary garnishes, they do so because it evokes a sense of celebration, which everyone at the table can recognize and join in the order of merriment. When we sit at a nice table full of forks we would never use on a Wednesday night, we don't think decadence, we think regality. When we toast using a crystal stemware, we don't think about how much more sensible it would be to clink our red plastic cups together rather than risk breakable glass. We feel the moment is elevated from the day-to-day activities and is a moment worth cherishing. It's it's not the crystal stemware and the fine china or the handful of forks set out for each person that makes the moment special. But because the moment is special, we take the time to adorn it with fancy food and decorative table settings. None of it is needed, but the very fact that it's all been put in place helps wrap a special moment in an ambiance that punctuates how extraordinary this instant in time really is. Fine china doesn't define a celebration, but not many people will serve wedding guests dinner on paper plates. Um, a topic that's popped up lately has been on altars and why we really need them. It probably started out with someone speaking in disfavor of altars, but my observation of the dialogue between pro-altar people and anti-altar people has been casual, so I don't know for sure. It's not a question of what an altar is or how to set one up, but rather are altars really needed to move spiritual progress forward. And and this dialogue is expanded to include the work of modern pagan. The question makes a lot of sense. Do modern pagans need their stuff? Do they do they need altars, tools, and fancy duds to worship or cast spells? Many books today espouse the need for these tools. Uh, this this stems from gardeners' itch to have stuff, to to display items of a witchy nature. I mean, he spent a lifetime collecting tools and had a museum on witchy stuff. Uh, and this is probably, or at least possibly, because he didn't appear to have any natural aptitude to magic himself. He he might have felt having so-called magical tools around him would buoy his credential as a witch. I don't know, I'm not anti-Gardner, but I do recognize the desire in others to have stuff to keep up appearances, the keeping up with the Joneses syndrome. But Gardner's motivations are just conjecture on my part. It doesn't lessen his uh, historical usefulness, so to speak. Yet time and again, people have written articles or have done videos reminding people that stuff isn't necessary. The same people who are traditional are Gardnerian and who have stuff. People who explain very eloquently that it is a pagan's relationship to that stuff, or what that stuff symbolizes, that matters, not the stuff itself. So I don't want to reiterate that kind of defense. What I do want to bring up is the motivation behind the question itself. I don't think it's limited to just a question of whether or not an altar or stuff is necessary for the craft or any other pagan path. I think it becomes a question of purity. Let me explain. Purity is one of the modes or standards people have used for centuries to weigh another's morality. One example was and is the Catholic Church's stance on sex. If you wanted to be morally pure, you refrained from indulging in sex, at least until after marriage. And then you tried not to enjoy. The more you abstained, the more pure you were, and the closer to God you would be. We have a similar phenomenon occurring today with food. We have guidelines dictating height and weight. Our menus are covered in calorie information, or at least they are in California. We throw around words like organic and gluten-free, low sodium and whole wheat, like there's some sort of scripture meant to drive off the pudgy devil. Today we embrace the notion that the more pure the food we eat, the more morally upstanding we are. People who are overweight are considered gluttonous and rife with sloth because we have judged them to be poor eaters and never exercise. Our bodies are our temples has become something of a war cry against people who are not rail thin. So I guess you should start treating yourself with respect because no one else is going to. The fact that both sex and food are commodities that people can easily profit on, the more pure the standards are, is not the topic of this video, but just remember that religion is frequently an excuse, but economics is always the motivation. I think because stuff is intrinsically tied into material wealth, a lot of people balk at using stuff for anything spiritual. The argument seems to say that if you want your spirituality to be more pure, in essence to bring you closer to God or whatever, then you should eschew stuff. Stuff is impure, thus an antithesis to spiritual progress. And while the point has merit, it's zooming in on what religion has done with stuff. In addition, the argument is not original. The Protestant Reformation wanted to clear out the gold-bedecked churches of the Catholic faith and bring people back to a simpler, more soul-focused path. Ornamentation was completely stripped away, including the figure of Jesus on the cross. Even church architecture scaled down in favor of small and simple. And yet, people seek grandeur in their relationship to divinity. One of the Protestant denominations, a couple decades ago, spent $18 billion to build the Crystal Cathedral in Orange County. And I definitely suggest you Google images of that, because it's very impressive. But while the cross remains unadorned, small and simple are not adjectives you would use to describe this place of worship. But was 18 million Was an $18 million commitment to God wrong or impure or less than spiritual? This is where you can furiously comment below. Are having a finely embroidered altar cloth and a silver chalice and 3-foot tall beeswax candles wrong? Does an athame and 40 different incense blends make someone less connected to spirit compared to someone with no trinkets? Will her magic be less than his because her spell is buoyed by a Besseman cauldron and his is fueled by will alone? Will my meal taste bland and my wine be too dry because I served it on fine china and crystal stemware? Well, maybe, but it's not because the spoon ran away with the salt. Books, good and bad, tell you about stuff. And YouTube videos are full of adorned altars. People like to share their stuff and they seem to make a big deal about it. And maybe all of that turns you off, and that's okay. But keep in mind when we see and hear about these things, it's because these things are the element that people can share with you. I can do a vlog about my altar, and I can show you how to make a particular incense, and I can even take you on a guided hike to my favorite spot in the mountains where I cast circle. I can't share my experience with the gods, spirits, elementals, whatever. When I show you my stuff, I'm not showing off. I'm sharing what I can of my journey. Stuff isn't an anchor to a person's spiritual progress any more than having a fish fork on the table prevents a person from enjoying their filet mignon. A person's relationship with stuff may be tarnished, whereby too much emphasis is placed on the material, on the collection of stuff rather than the relationship with the symbols. But then that person's stuff is only a symptom of a pre-existing condition, not the cause. We should learn to develop relationships with stuff that works for us. If that means working with nothing tangible, it means working double time with your imagination. If that means a full set of traditional tools, then you'll find many with like minds. If that means finding stuff whose symbols are powerful to you and only to you, then you get to forge a unique relationship. Maybe tattoos instead of tools, or song instead of incense. Maybe even items your avatar collects in an online or role-playing game, and then you choose to reflect on those things when you're spellcasting. We live in a modern world where we have access to almost anything we can dream up, but we're smart enough to know we can do almost anything without any of those things. We need to unlearn measuring another person's purity by standards we set for ourselves just because those standards work for us. Because purity, like beauty, is in the eye of the beholder. And I find a beautiful altar a very pure expression of a person's enthusiasm for the relationship with spirit, even though it is absolutely not necessary. I guess that wraps it up. Whether you're under balmy skies or falling snow, make sure you take plenty of vitamin C and stay healthy. I wish everyone an excellent week and a rosy Valentine's, I guess. Cheers.